Like I already said, we don't want to be doing all of this inside of every single controller that we have where we want to validate a token. So we're going to go ahead and create out a custom rule for this. So go ahead and make a rule in here, and we're just going to call this reCAPTCHA. And let's go ahead and create that out. Okay, let's open up the reCAPTCHA rule. And if you've not worked with custom validation rules within Laravel before, the constructor, of course, allows you to pass in any data, and that's where we're going to accept in a threshold. And then we have this passes method in here, which just requires a Boolean be returned, whether this particular rule fails or not. We also have the validation message in here that we can use to output. We'll be changing that over in a minute. So let's go ahead and just start to pull everything over. So let's grab all of the code that we created here, and let's go ahead and just cut this out, and let's put that inside of the passes method just inside of here. And that looks good. Let's just make sure that we pull in all of the namespaces that we need. Now request doesn't exist at the moment. Of course, that's just value. So when we do implement this within validation, that will come through as the value in here. And the rest of this is pretty good. So we've got a return false twice, and we'll return true finally if both of these don't call. Okay, so now that we've got this working, let's go ahead and accept in a threshold here so we can control this a little bit better. In fact, before we do that, let's actually go ahead and actually send this validation request through. So let's say this validate, let's pass the request in. Of course, you'd have other validation information in here as well, things that you wanted to validate, but we're interested in this reCAPTCHA token. I can never spell this. And let's go ahead and say new, in fact, let's make it required first of all, and let's say new reCAPTCHA. There we go, and that's it. So now if we come across and we hit create post, we get store the post. Let's purposely fail this by messing around with the threshold. So let's come down to here and set the threshold to 1. And let's go over and hit create post. And there we go. We just get redirected back. Now with this threshold, we probably want to be able to specify this on a per form basis. So let's go ahead and accept in the threshold into the constructor of this threshold. And we'll set that as a default of 0.7. So what we can now do is, instead of referencing a hard-coded value, reference this threshold, and we can go ahead and define that when we actually submit this through. So remember, it has a default, so we don't need to do this, but I can go ahead and pop that in there for any form that I create now, and it's going to work in exactly the same way. So that's pretty much it. We've got this working now with a custom validation rule, and we have gone ahead and done pretty much everything we need to do. The last thing that we want to do, of course not forgetting to extract these out to config eventually, is tidy this up so we can reuse this easily. At the moment we've done everything that we need to do inside of execute, but this is going to make it really, really annoying to have to duplicate all of this for every single form that we want to use reCAPTCHA on. So let's extract this out in the next part to a blade component.